Oh, are we live?
Yeah,
Hello, everybody.
live.
Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. I'm Roy Melendez.
Hi, Roy. It's Shannon O'Loughlin, and we're here at Red Hoop Talk, Native News and Talk. I'm from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Where are you from, Roy?
I am from the Caddo Nation of Louisiana. The other Caddos, the Adayas Caddos, from our homeland, not from Oklahoma.
Hey,
those be as cousins.
Don't be saying anything bad about Oklahoma.
No. We love Oklahoma. And our family out there. And hello to all the Caddos from Oklahoma.
And welcome everyone, wherever you're joining us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We hope that you'll make it over to our YouTube site and punch that like button,
Smash the
subscribe button, and leave us some comments, even if they're bad and gnarly.
Yep, we like those too.
We like whatever kind of attention you want to give us because we're just that dysfunctional. So Red Hoop Talk is, if you've never been here with us before, is a show about staying close to culture, and we bring on special guests from around Indian country who are doing good work in Indian country, and they're here to share with us their story, who they are, where they come from, and what the heck they're doing. And we've been inspired, we've cried, we've laughed. We've made fun of one another, especially Roy.
Yep.
And we're really happy that you're joining and listening and spending your Sunday evening or whatever evening you choose to spend with us. Please let us know that you're out there. Tell us who you are, where you come from, if you have a tribal affiliation or anything else that you want to share. Feel free to do so.
Drop us a question or a hello in the chat room so that we know you're all out there watching and chatting. We usually have our regulars. There's Lance. Hey, what's up, Lance?
And I have to share.
Spring, yes. And I'm from Southern California, and I can't wait for spring. My goodness, we've had a cold.
No, are you kidding? It's snowing here. So I'm coming to you from the Piscataway, original lands of the Piscataway peoples, which is now called Maryland. Where are we? North of DC, right? It's snowing, and I love the snow. Snow. So
I don't like that white stuff. I do not like the white stuff.
But here's the thing: see how freaking pale I am? Like I feel so freaking pale right now. I need some color or something going on.
50 days. You can start. 50 days. I should be probably about 20 days. As soon as we get rid of this cold, rainy weather that we're having right now. And by the way, I want to thank the first people of California upon whose land I stand. And I come from the Southern California area, the land of sunshine and orange juice. And soon, we will be back into the days of sunshine. I don't mind the wintertime. I like the wintertime. Story time and the long nights and, cuddling up next to the fire and the holidays and especially food. Like what happened today was, food. Food is my thing. I love my food. I'm a foodie. But today was tamale day. We usually make them before Christmas every year. This year, the COVID kind of shut everything down for us, so we didn't do a whole bunch of anything. But today was tamale day. Me and my daughter did our traditional tamale making. Our first year without my grandmother, so that was kind of a rough one for us. But we did them in her honor, and we made them just like she did. And I'm glad she passed that down to us, and we were able to hold on to that family tradition. But it was fun, and I'm full. I'm so full. I ate too many. I hate that. You get sick of them the first night because you wait all year for them, right? You're waiting all year, and you freeze a little, and they last for a few months, but then they're gone, and then you can't wait for them to come again. And then when they do, and the day you make them, first you're nibbling all day, and then wham, when they're done, you're just like eating them hot out of the pot, and oh man, just too many. Eat too many.
Well, I wish I was there to grab one, Roy. I haven't
Yeah.
had a good tamale in I don't know how long.
Since you left California.
No, since I left Arizona, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they make them good there
Yeah,
too. New Mexico, Arizona,
yeah,
and yeah, all the Texas folk make good tamales.
they do.
They do. They do.
Okay,
Yep,
I'll trust you on that.
Texas is. You've never heard Tex-Mex food? The Tex-Mex
Yeah,
food
well,
they have there? It's like a mixture of native
Tex-Mex
and
food. Yeah.
yeah, they tamale it up down there, boy. Woof, they make some good ones. And then in South America, all the people down there make a different version too. So you have South America, Central America, they all make a different version of
Wow,
theirs.
people are so diverse. What an amazing thing.
But it's the same.
So unusual.
It's the same little present, wrapped up in a corn husk or something. And yeah, I'm telling you, man, there is nothing better. I love those. I love tamales. See, we got look at the chat room's filling up. Jim, we got Sarah. Good evening, Sarah and Jim, and JD. Good to see you in the chat room as always. Alec Weiniger, howdy, friends from Omaha, Nebraska. Brian Severance Sr. I'm from northern Massachusetts. I trace my heritage back to. He's got a bunch of names in there. New Hampshire, from New Hampshire. All right, a lot of.
Our Lance and JD, all are good friends.
Yep.
I'm glad you all are out there with us. And those of you who never tell us who you are, but we know you still watch.
We know you're watching.
And we're grateful to you. This is, we're in our new year. We've got a new president. We've got everything old is new again. I don't know. I'm still being skeptical, Roy.
Well, I knew you would, but the cycles, it's about the cycles, right? You and I both have learned that everything goes, there's nothing new under the sun, and it's all in cycles. And we're in a new cycle now. Things have changed. Things are moving. You can see it. Like before the show, I was talking to you about a little trading incident that happened out there in the financial world, where it's kind of bringing together all sides of the fence. Like, hey, the powers that be are really trying to screw us over here, and we're not going to take it anymore. And if for those of you who don't know, there was a situation where a stock was tanking. It was a company that was being wrecked by the COVID thing. GameStop, yeah. And
who goes and buys games anymore?
So this company,
it's like Blockbuster. The fact
that it was like I'm gonna
GameStop is still lucrative at all is. But like now, what are the stock prices for that thing now?
That's the problem, is that they are a failing company, and their technology or their necessity is going away. So it was only known that, hey, okay, they're going the way of the dodo bird kind of thing, and they're failing, and they either got to reinvent themselves somehow, or, well, this company, this hedge fund company jumps out there. Big guy, big, trading firm jumps out there and says, okay, well, we're going to show you what we're going to do to this company. We're going to short the crap out of it and kill it and make a lot of money off of it by shorting it. Mm-hmm. And that means they're basically going to bet on it to lose more. And then the people rallied together on a Reddit forum, and it was just a bunch of common people from all sides of the fence, and Indian TickTock was actually talking about it, And,
really?
Native TikTok. Yeah, they had some native TikTokers were talking about GameStop, and they did some.
Oh man, I wish I would have had those and could have
shown them. I know I should have grabbed them. I saw a few of them, and I didn't grab them. I should.
All right, everybody, everyone's supposed to be on TikTok now, right? Because Roy said so.
Roy said so.
And the Association on American Indian Affairs, we're on TikTok too. But so everyone go watch TikTok native TikTok and GameStop. See what you find.
Well, anyway, so all these people said, no, we're not going to let you short GameStop. So they started buying the stock, and then even Elon Musk got involved. So he threw a thing out there, so they started buying more of it. And then another big trader guy got involved, and they started buying even more of it. And before you know it, all the, native TickTock and all the TickTokers and everybody was buying this stock, and it went to the moon. I mean, it just shot up like crazy, and it killed this firm. So this firm was having to buy back in their position every time it went higher and higher and higher. Ooh. And they lost 52% of their holdings, and they're like a multi-billion-dollar firm, right? And so they got wrecked. It just destroyed them. Wow. But the problem with that is now there's this. So everybody got together, rallied around GameStop to try and stop this big hedge fund from doing what they were doing, And now the stock went up too far in value, and everybody who's holding onto this stock is kind of in trouble. And then the worst thing of all, the trading platforms turned off and halted trading and manipulated the whole system and said, okay, well, we're not going to let any of you trade anymore. We're going to save this hedge fund. So the powers that be got together, and the big guy helped the big guy out because the little guys were kicking its ass. And that is a horrible thing for us to see out there. But, so many people rallying around that thing. But again, it just speaks to what's going on out there, which is the people have power. The people have power. Right. And just like Black Lives Matter and all these things that are going on, the people have power. And whether it's put into, we have to find good ways to put that power into use. Because even though I may politically not believe the same way those people that stormed the Capitol did, they were putting their power in play as a group of people, however misguided it may have been, and now a lot of them are in trouble because they did the wrong thing, right. And people died and all that kind of stuff. And but what it's showing is that people are trying to get the power back right now, and it's working. It's working, and it's causing disruption of the status quo. And that's going to be a good thing here in the future. I think that we're just starting to get our teeth gnashing and our legs underneath us with this, and especially in Indian country, because we've got things happening now and people are rallying behind. And one of the biggest issues, I think, to stand before us is this climate change issue. Yeah. And the lack of any care of it over the last few years. And that's always at the heart of Indian country. That's one of the issues that's always at the center of everything that we believe in, because I guess, for a lack of a better term, our number one tenet as Native people is to take care of the place that we stand on, to take care of the earth, to take care of the things that provide for us, the water, the air, the land that we stand on. And so that's one of our core beliefs. And now that things are changing in the direction of that being recognized, and that Indian people in this country are actually being appointed to those posts, I think speaks volumes of what we've been doing, what we've been trying to accomplish, and what the young people are out there doing in the streets right now, rallying around that, getting out there and voting, and putting people in power that actually value the opinions of Indian country. And that's a good thing, and it's starting to happen. So your pessimism is warranted, but we do see things moving in the right direction. Roy, being the optimist, sees things going in the right direction.
Okay, fine. Changing the subject.
You're supposed to clap and say, "Good one, Roy. You've changed my mind completely." I feel great.
Well, I part of it is, I do want to be optimistic, but it takes, like I always say, it takes each and every one of us to be active, yes, and to educate ourselves, yes, because I continue to hear people who love to just and in Indian country, we're so great at gossiping. I mean, it's part of our.
Oh yeah.
It's not gossiping, but it's part of our culture that we talk about one another, and the way in which we talk about people can either uplift people or can just rip them apart. And for some reason, I think we've been colonized to rip one another apart more than encouraging and supporting one another. I think the kind of gossip and teasing where we're encouraging one another in a loving way, where we use a little toughness every once in a while to get each one of us to,
instead of the crabs trying to get out of the bucket type of situation.
Yeah. I've been dealing with a lot of gossip and just, people who like to accuse and not care whether it's based on any facts, and just because it's said somehow makes it true. And it's really hard to have a real discussion with people when they're in that place. It's hard to find, and I tend to be a person to just, call your shit and say, you're a stupid idiot. And, when you get ready to, and that's not helpful.
No, but that backbiting thing seems to also be a product of the internet, I think, because we have so much access to information, true or not. We have so much access. It's almost like a gun situation. Like if you look statistically, people who own guns are usually the people who have gun accidents, problems, get shot. And it's so easy to pull that trigger, and in a fit of rage, in a heat of passion, in a situation, just like it is right now, it's so easy to put a tweet out or send a DM or say something that you really shouldn't have said, but said anyway. Or even get inebriated and say something stupid, or text in the middle of the evening.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine if I was like dating with all this social media. Oh my God.
How many times were you saved by not having a cell phone or a way to social media somebody?
Yeah, I was a crazy bitch at some point. Oh my God.
Well, at one point. So these things are out there, and you can't just reel them back in.
Right.
It happens. It's just like you said, the gun situation. Once the trigger's pulled, lives change. Everything's changed.
But the good here, I'm switching sides.
Yes, there is a good to it.
The good also works in the same way as well, right?
Yes.
And so that's why I'm really grateful for the guests that we have tonight. Roy, this is going to be a great show. This is not a lawyer friend of mine or a name friend of Roy's. This is someone who was wonderfully suggested to us. And thank goodness, I'm so grateful to meet Dustin Martin. You want to bring him up?
Yes.
Roy?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all over the nation, it's Dustin Quinn,
who's from the Navajo Nation and is also the executive director of Wings of America. And we are going to talk about how Dustin is really changing lives and working on the ground for Native youth. But welcome, Dustin. Thanks for joining us on the show. We're glad we can get you on a Sunday. We know you're a busy guy.
Dustin Martin dash Jane Bish Bachat initially. Ta Cheatney Bashes Chin New Yorker dash Chekia Ani dashnale. Not Najoji, not Najoji Dan Nasha. Chin Lady Bitish Wings of America Nashnish. Hello everybody. My name is Dustin Martin. They call me Dustin. Some people call me Dustbuster, Dustbin, all sorts of things. I've heard it all. Dust in the wind. I'm originally from Gallup, New Mexico. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. but currently I live on Tiwa territory in what we now call Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I just became a father right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, hell, congratulations. Oh my God.
But at the same time, it's just trying to continue this work. I'm very honored and very privileged to have work trying to promote running for American Indian youth. And running has been an integral part of my life, brought me so many blessings in my lifetime. And, just trying to share that message and that vehicle for other Indigenous youth. When I say, the difference between Native and Indigenous is, I think that this sport and the activity has the potential to help rise Indigenous youth all over the world. But we're very proud of that tradition here in North America, and that's what I've done the most research on and been fortunate to spend the most time in, and in a lot of ways has brought me closer to and kept me close to my culture in a way that may not have happened was it not for running. So very, very fortunate in that respect, and happy to talk with you guys about that journey, especially over the last 10 years since I've been working for Wings.
Yeah, this is going to be a great show. So all you lazy asses that are listening right now, including you, Roy, I think you're going to be heavily inspired listening to Dustin and his story about running. I think we're all going to be a little bit inspired and hopefully get up early and do our run like we're all supposed to be doing Monday morning.
No more running for me. My knees have had it.
I don't want to hear about your old knees. All right.
I walk now, and no more running for me. But I'll let the light guys continue to do so. I start putting my 190, 200 pounds on my knees, and it's just too much.
There's no way you're 200 pounds, Roy. Yes, are you really?
I'm actually over 200 pounds right now.
No freaking way.
Yes.
Oh,
but I'm thick. I'm thick.
Yeah, you're thick.
I'm not. I mean, anyway, I'm 53.
Roy,
you just start gaining some weight, and you put it.
I know.
It's not as easy. It's not easy.
Sorry, Dustin. We're old. We're old. Okay. So
and look at Dustin. He's like built for speed. You can tell. He's built for running. He's been running for a long time. And
I've been watching him run and stuff and see his pictures, man. I don't think he eats any at all. You need to eat some food.
Well, I bet he eats a lot. He probably eats a lot. It's all that running. He burns it off.
So, Dustin, I want to take a little time. I know you're a citizen of the Navajo Nation, and I know the Navajo Nation has been in the news quite a bit with the pandemic, as well as with politics. And Navajo Nation is a really important nation in Indian country because, for example, y'all have what seems to be like Western-oriented tribal courts and Western-oriented codes and all these other things, but you are so deeply embedded in your traditions that everything is interpreted through your treaties, through your language, through your traditions, that all of those things which other people might see as being kind of a Western stick-on is not that way at all. You all are such an incredible nation, and your sovereignty is admirable. And I think a lot of people are devastated right now with healthcare, and so I guess that's still something that we've got to take care of. And I'm sorry for my long thing. Can you talk a little bit about the Navajo Nation? Did you grow up there?
Yeah, so I grew up in and around the Navajo Nation, south of Gallup, New Mexico, near a place called Chicholta, closer to Zuni. So, there, of course, Anadarko would dispute this, but I grew up knowing Gallup as the Indian capital of the world and was surrounded by my culture and my people, and, a rarity to grow up in a town and in a place where white people are still the minority. And so, the way that you thought about what it meant to be native or to be close to your culture is very different from a lot of other places and a lot of other tribes in North America, just because, you know, the Navajo Nation gets a lot of lip service and credit because we have such a large land base, right? The largest land base and the largest population or enrollment. And our people don't take that for granted, right? That in 1868, when they sent General Sherman to Fort Sumner in eastern New Mexico to decide what to do with the Navajo who had been interred there for 4 years since 1864, that ultimately he, you know, said, well, send them home. And it's interesting, right? Because at the time, I think a lot of people would have agreed with Sherman insofar as, well, send them home because their land isn't worth anything to us, right? It looked like waterless desert and a very harsh land for a lot of people over a long period of time through colonization. You know, to really break into the heart of Diné-Bikéyah was scary, hard work. And so they said, okay, go ahead and go home. And thank goodness they did, because there are so many other tribes in North America, around the world, that were relocated and were not allowed to go back to that land base. So, you know, our teachings and our language and our spirit is rooted in that landscape. And, you know, I think a lot of that clout, so to speak, that the Navajo Nation has is a byproduct of the fact that we are still rooted in our landscape. And we can say that proudly and defend it tooth and nail, right? And we're very adaptive people, right? Depending on who you talk to, of course, you can argue whether sheep were native to our society or whether they came after the beginnings of colonization. But I don't think, you know, this is my personal thought, but post Quildi or post interment, had it not been for the sheep, right, specifically the English sheep that were introduced, and the fact that we were just chasing them all over the place. If you look at the history of the size of the Navajo Nation, it grew with the sheep. You know, post Fort Sumner, the people were chasing their sheep, making their sheep herds larger, and they couldn't keep us in until eventually in the 20s, there was John Collier, the Indian agent, who said, well, we got to kill as many as we can. No family can have a larger herd than this. And that was the policy. Right? They were saying, well,
John Collier said that?
Yeah. If you don't know anything about livestock reduction, you know, they determined that Lake Powell was going to fill up with too much silt if they didn't mitigate the overgrazing on Navajo Nation. And so they said, well, we're going to slaughter your herds, no matter what size they are or what your herd does for your community. No one can have a herd larger than this size. And it was devastating. And, you know, like I said, going back to this history of, well, they let us go home because at the time they thought our land was worthless. But then, you know, the materials, the uranium that built the bomb, right? That has fueled a nuclear arms race over the last 80 years came off our lands. And, you know, we have a lot to say about a lot of things that people may say, well, you're just your little corner of the world. But, you know, our watershed, the Little Colorado River watershed, and the San Juan and all those areas that feeds major cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas and Los Angeles. And so we got something to say about it if we need to. And, you know, my dad likes to say, Navajos are like beer cans. You'll find them everywhere. You know, no matter where you are, you look hard enough, and you'll find a Diné relative, no matter what corner of the country you're in, that has an opinion about something. That's for sure.
Yeah, I learned a lot about the Navajo Nation in law school because the Navajo Nation was always brought up as an example of good court cases because of the Navajo treaties. the way Navajo uses their treaties and how they've built their systems.
Well, even that, I mean, our system would not exist were it not for Standard Oil Company wanting to be able to lease oil and gas, plots in the Four Corners. They built the Navajo Tribal Council and created that executive branch simply so that the Tribal Council could approve those land leases, so that they could start pumping oil out of those lands, which are now, there's close to Bears Ears, and we're still fighting these fights. So.
Yeah. And it's part of that decolonization of all of our institutions, right? So how do you feel the Navajo Nation is doing now?
Yeah, it's a harrowing time. It's a scary time. I have not been on the res much, because I live in Albuquerque, and it is very bizarre for the last 10 years to have done so much work on the Navajo Nation in those communities, and have had such little contact over the last 10 months. And I did go there. My brother and I made a trip out there. This is already back in July, to film some tutorials, some workout videos with some of our former participants, so that we can keep people engaged during the pandemic. And everywhere I went, I just felt fear like I never have in my life. With signs out at the road, at the highway, saying no visitors, don't come here. And that's heartbreaking. It's tough to see. I have relatives that have gotten the virus and survived. Fortunately, no one in my immediate family that has been taken by it, but it's impacted everybody. And especially for a program like Wings of America that I work for, that relies on that collaboration in those communities, we just understand that it's going to take a long time still for that trust to be rebuilt, and for people to feel safe enough to let us impact their kids in person, whether you're a member of the tribal nation or not, right? It's this real, like I said, kind of mind shifting idea that, okay, I'm only 2 hours away from my ancestral homelands. I can see one of my sacred mountains basically out my front door. But if I'm not a citizen of that land base, then am I really a citizen of that nation? Right? And whatever impact I may have on the ideas or the people that live there, is if you're not there to share in that fear and the frustration of not being able to be close to your family that might be just down the road, or you've lost a loved one, it's, like I said, it's been humbling, and also made me think a lot about my identity and my belonging to, Navajo people, because for all intents and purposes, in a time like this, I'm a city boy. I'm a liability if I go home and may introduce something that's foreign, that's not safe for our followers. So it's been really difficult to come to terms with, and I know that there's a lot of other relatives out there that are frustrated with the same thing. I have a life in the city, or I have a job, but I don't feel safe going home. And that's soul sucking. It definitely, it weighs on your spirit, but we have activities like running to help us get through those times.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you've been through many different changes of environment in your life, and so I mean, you went to school out east, right? You so somehow you made it from your homelands to the freaking East Coast, which is as different as Mars and Venus, and to go to school in Columbia for anthropology. So how did you get there? How did you?
Yeah, well, running was my vehicle, my ticket.
Yeah.
I grew up in Gallup, which has a very, very strong tradition of distance runners doing amazing things. The Gallup Bengals, native distance runners doing amazing things. And as an elementary school age kid, my mom was a coach for the Gallup Bengals in the late 80s, early 90s. Before I could walk, I was going to cross country meets, looking up to runners. My mom was then a coach again when I was in middle school, still attending Gallup Middle School. So I idolized those people, runners like Felicia Gulliford, who's from Zia Pueblo and also half Black, but she was amazing, sixth in the nation, like the type of person that was winning the Foot Locker Nationals cross country race, had an asthma attack, fell down and got up and still managed to finish as an All-American. I think sixth, right? Wow. Other runners like C.R. Davis and names that may not mean anything to anyone outside of the New Mexico running sphere, but for me, it was just to see those athletes defining themselves in cities like Albuquerque, that felt like New York City at that time to me, right? Being able to see them compete was just amazing. And I just wanted to follow in their footsteps. And it just so happened that, before I transitioned into high school, my parents got divorced and we moved to Albuquerque so my mom could go back to school. And I, at the time, watched Albuquerque Academy. It's a private high school here in Albuquerque. I went to a cross country meet and watched them perfect score a Gallup team that I thought was decent, and I watched that happen. And I remember immediately thinking, like, I need to be on that team. The Gallup Bengals are good, but I need to be on that team, and some people might say like, oh, you just, quickly your allegiances, they changed that quickly just because you wanted to be a winner. But at that time, I'm not afraid to admit maybe I was that shallow as an eighth grader, right? Looking like, well, if running is my ticket, then I want to be on the best team possible. And ended up getting into this private high school during a time when, there was still decent financial aid offered to families like mine. Post 2009 financial crash, that wouldn't have happened. Right. And went to this private high school that gave me a wonderful education and academic foundation as well, where I could eventually be recruited to go to a place like Columbia and survive and be able to hold my own, study something like anthropology, which was also very interesting, right? To be in this founding department of anthropology in the United States, being told that culture in and of itself had inherent value, and also realizing like I've known that, and so to be in some classes almost looked at or listened to with more authority than the professor was just surreal, just because of my background. And but running always kept me grounded, and I would be able to go home during the summers and work for Wings as a facilitator out on the Navajo Nation or amongst the Pueblos, coordinating running and fitness camps. And I just kept some perspective on what was important and why I was there. And the more I associated with other Wings runners, mentors, the more I learned about my culture and learned about my language. And I'm by no means an expert, but running gave me that avenue to be able to stay somewhat immersed. And when I graduated from Columbia, I was planning on staying in New York City. I had this t-shirt company that I had started, and I was an entrepreneur, that's for sure. And I was ready. I was full on, and just so happened that Sean Martin, who was a previous, and not related to me, it just so happened that we have last name, was the previous program director for Wings, and he stepped down right as I was graduating. And when the board asked, well, who do we replace you with? He said, well, Dustin just graduated. Give him a call and see if he's interested. And that's what they did. And with the money I was supposed to spend on my deposit for my apartment, I bought a car and I drove home. And that was 2011, October of 2011.
Wow. Yeah, very nice, and it's amazing the work that Wings has done.
How about we explain a little bit about what Wings is?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'd like to know, a little bit of their history, and then how you got involved, and what does
Yeah,
it mean?
so Wings is a not-for-profit, 501c3. And for the longest time, we were based in Santa Fe, but we just moved our offices to Albuquerque, actually, which is great for me living in Albuquerque. And our mission is to promote running for American Indian youth and their families. And the program really began in 1988 when, with the consultation of legendary coaches like Rick Baker from Hopi and James Nels, who's now at Riverside Indian School, Wings knew that there was tons of talent out there, that there was opportunities that Native runners deserved and they weren't getting. And so they put this organization together to take the best Native runners they could find to national competitions. And at that time, it was TAC National Cross Country Championships rather than USATF National Cross Country Championships. And they took this first team in 1988 that they recruited by a selection race. They had a selection race at Second Mesa out on Hopi, actually on Thanksgiving Day of 1988. And all these people came from every corner of the Southwest at the recommendation of their coaches. And they ran, it was like a runoff for this race. And they chose their teams. But those teams went to Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina that first year, and they won. They beat teams that were, formidable. And people woke up and they said, wow, these kids are the real deal. And after that, things just continued to flourish. And so Wings was rooted in this competitive background. But as I'm sorry, can you hear my son Kilo in the background?
Hey, that's perfectly
I hope he's
fine with us.
okay.
All right, yeah, he's all right. His
Okay.
mom got him, but I just anyway, we rooted in this competitive. Everyone wants to be involved with a winner is kind of the way that Wings got started, right? Everyone wanted to hop on the bandwagon and help Wings out, and that's included companies like Nike for over 20 years. Even before N7 existed, Nike was on board helping Wings out and helping out with this vision of giving Native youth the opportunity that they deserve to distinguish themselves as runners, doing an activity that is part of who we are. And over the years, things have shifted so that it's not always rooted in competition, or that we're not only giving opportunities to the fastest of the fast, whether it be our summer running camps where we go out and we just get kids moving for 2 days in their community with the help of high school and college age mentors. Or we have a newer program that's kind of been started in the last 5 years called our Pursuit program, where we take a group of high school juniors to Boston during marathon weekend. And these students are selected mostly on their academic merit, not necessarily because they're fast runners, to visit Harvard and view the marathon during like the most extravagant running weekend in the world. And just open people's eyes to what's possible, what's within reach, and give them a tool, which is running, to whether it's keeping yourself healthy and happy into adulthood and into old age, or because you do like that competition and you do want to distinguish yourself and represent your tribe or your people. It's possible. It's definitely possible with the help of running. And like I said, I'm just very fortunate to have a job to be constantly thinking about how do we keep this tradition going, bring in the next generation of leaders, how do we give them the resources and the tools they need to pass it on, and keep that relay going. And at this point, there are former Wings national team members that have sons and daughters that have made Wings national teams, right? We're multi-generational, that are, you see that the ethic and the ideas that are instilled in a person because they're a runner, they pass down. And part of that is being respectful of your landscape, being respectful of your culture, and being respectful of yourself and your body and your mind, and running. If you're a religious runner, you can't get away from those things. Right? your mind won't let you trick yourself into believing that you're doing something good or you've done something good when maybe you haven't.
And a lot of people look at running as something a little more superficial than what it is. And running has a long history and connection with culture and religion for many Native nations. Can you get into a little more depth about how important running is to culture?
Yeah, I mean, at the most utilitarian level, right?
Right.
It was a way of keeping in contact with one another. It is a way of keeping in contact with one another, keeping in contact beyond that with the spirit realm as well, right? A way of running messages from important places on our ancestral homelands to other important places to let, you know, the holy people know that we're still appreciative for the gifts that they send us and that we're willing to sacrifice for them to continue coming. And you know, there's so much you could talk about, whether it's competitive history of tribes people like, you know, that's the Raramudi or the Tarahumara and the Copper Canyons that have distinguished themselves as amazing ultra distance runners, or, you know, Billy Mills, who is still our only Native or only American, I should say, I don't like the term American, the only United States citizen ever to win a gold medal in the 10K at the Olympics. And as a Dene person, you know, every Dene person has been told at one point that we're supposed to wake up early in the morning and run east and say our prayers and say thanks for the day. And that's deeply ingrained in our culture, all the way to coming of age ceremonies, where, you know, when young ladies go through their coming of age, they're to run 3 times a day, depending on who their informant is, whoever is, you know, conducting their ceremony, to show their strength, to show their resilience, to pray for a long life and pray for the strength that they need to make it through that life. So, you know, I think, like I said, you could just ramble on forever, but what resonates, I think, worldwide with Indigenous people is that running is not just a form of exercise. Running is a way to commune with your landscape and with the spirits, with the powers that be. And like I said, just commune, to have a conversation with the deepest parts of yourself, but also once you're connected with the earth, you're conversing with the earth as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every time your foot touches the ground and comes up and every breath, I mean, it's a complete connection with all of that around you, with your creator, among other things. Lance was asking, what's your favorite running trail in Albuquerque?
My favorite running trail in Albuquerque is got to be like anywhere between Manal and I-40 in the foothills, just because it's close to home. And so some people call it the top of Copper, some people call it the top of Indian School, but just those hills, the sequence of hills in that area and the single track is just like, you know, there's a lot of professional runners that would avoid that area just because it's a little too technical or, you know, a little too hilly. You can't really get in a great rhythm in that landscape, but it's just, for me, there's nothing better. And it's a place that I can always go to feel at home and to feel, you know, you go up there and like I said, out my doorstep, I can see one of the 4 Navajo sacred mountains, which is not exactly accurate. I would need to go up a little higher in the foothills to be able to see. And so I can go up there and see Tzotzil, Mount Taylor over by Grants, and just be with my thoughts and also still feel like I'm close to home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There was a time when running did that for me too. Now I'm just like thinking of whether or not I'm going to have a heart attack and die before I get home. That's how my running experience is now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's. I think it's important, and this has been a huge, you know, evolution for my thinking as well. That it's just movement on your landscape. movement on the earth. And if you can connect in that way and take really inventory of resources on your land and features on your land, that's important, because if you do it driving by, even at 35 miles an hour, you don't see it the same.
Yeah.
And we need those voices. We need those people that are connected with those places so that they really serve as witnesses to, hopefully, right? Hopefully we can avoid this, but the reality in a lot of places in Indian country right now is they're in the crosshairs of some company, right? They're in the crosshairs of someone that wants that land for something else other than its inherent value to the people that are from it. And to run is to be a warrior against that mentality, because you know that land and you understand that landscape for its value much more than what the oil and gas lease may be worth beneath it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So here's a good question for you. Any legends of great native runners from history?
Absolutely. And so, everyone loves to talk about Billy Mills, and if you
Thorpe.
don't know Billy Mills, just please go YouTube Billy Mills and watch the end of his 10K in 1964 in Tokyo. You need to see it, but there are plenty that people don't know about, and some people that I really want to highlight. And I gave you some content to maybe be able to throw them up, Shannon.
Yeah. What do you want me to throw up?
If you can throw up a photo of myself and Steve Gachupin after the Laude trail run. But there's some runners from here in New Mexico that are just legendary hill runners, which I aspire to be a legendary hill runner. I love this terrain and I love where I'm from, and it turns us into these just tenacious, nasty hill runners that, we can compete anywhere in the world. And so, but you got to respect your elders in that process, right? I'm talking a big game, but I know this is possible because of runners like Steve Gachupin. Steve Gachupin won Pikes Peak Relay or Pikes Peak Marathon above Colorado Springs 6 years in a row, I think from 66 to 71. The first time he ran that race, he ran it in Chuck Taylor's, right? People had no idea who he was, and he trained himself. His training was tracking and hunting and being a citizen of his nation. The Jemez Pueblo in the Jemez Mountains northwest of Albuquerque, and after him, Al Waki, another amazing Jemez runner, still has the course record on La Luz Trail Run, which is up to Sandias above Albuquerque. Won, I think, 7 or 8 Pikes Peak marathons after Steve, held that record, held that tradition. What we're looking at is, and maybe you can throw the link up, Shannon, but this is Mexico Tough Guy list, which talks about some of the greatest runners in New Mexico history, and both Steve and Al Waki are on there, along with some other great, just amazing runners like Pablo Vigil, but mostly hill runners, right? Mostly trail runners before trail running was really that popular. And so, I aspire to hold that space for our generation as well, to show Native youth, especially now that trail running is more popular and more within the mainstream. We gotta, like I said, hold that space and be present. Al Waki also, like just idea of the type of opportunities that come and the ways to represent our people. Like, he won 5 Empire State Building run-ups in a row. This wild race where you run up the stairs of the Empire State Building. And he won 5 in a row. He's a legend in that space, right? In New York City, to think that you have this runner from Jemez Pueblo who just beat them all. And I think held a record for 16 years on that run before someone finally came along and could match it. But you're also looking at people training in 70s and 80s when the gear and the rehab and the technique was just very different, on And but these guys were tough as nails, and I want more people to know those names, Steve Gachapin and Al Wapke, but also I want them to know them for the right reasons, because one of the most humbling lessons that I was given by Steve, he came and spoke with some wings facilitators a number of times, but one year he said, all these things that I did and all these races that I won, or achievements that I had, I'm still most thankful to be a runner because of those times where I was out running and I stumbled upon someone who needed my help, right? I stumbled upon a relative who was in a bad place, and because I was out there on that day, I was the only one that could lend a hand and alert whoever needed to be alerted to the fact that that person needed some help. So that is kind of, in a nutshell, like all I can ever hope to be as a runner, someone who can represent on the competitive field, but also is close enough to home to be able to help relatives when they need material help, right? When they just need you to actually be present and be there. And yeah, means a lot to me.
Here's Gray Gently is calling Ellison Myers Brown Sr., who is Narragansett, Boston Marathon.
This is another very not spoken about Native runner who was amazing. Ellison Myers Brown, the papers called him Tarzan, you can understand why. It was not a nice thing to call him at the time. But Ellison Tarzan Brown won the 1936 and 1939 Boston Marathons. Actually, there's a hill, a very famous spot on the Boston Marathon course called Heartbreak Hill, which is called so because of Ellison Tarzan Brown. During the 1936 race, the first time he won, a very famous runner, John Kelly, who eventually, there's actually a statue of John Kelly on Heartbreak Hill now, which makes no sense, but he ended up running the race for like 80 years in a row, and was a course marshal at some point. But anyway, in the 36 edition, he ran by Ellison before Heartbreak Hill, basically with this attitude like, well, nice try, man, but and patted him on the butt. And and Ellison didn't like that, right? And so he just sprinted past this guy going up Heartbreak Hill and broke his heart. And that's why it's Heartbreak Hill, right? Because you have this runner who, Ellison Tarzan Brown was not a professional runner by any means. This guy he did whatever he could to get by. There are stories about him running races, looking at the prizes before the race so that he could choose what was actually useful to him, and then purposefully getting that place. Right. I don't want the trophy. I don't need that thing. But if I get fourth place or whatever, I can use that to help myself and my family out. And so in 36, he won. And then 1939, he came back really because people said that it was a fluke, that, what he did, it was not, he got lucky basically. Right. Yeah. And in 1939, he came back and set a course record that's set for something like 20 years. Wow. And people don't know about these runners. And the same thing in the Boston Marathon, you look at a runner like Patty Dillon at the time when she was running, Patty Catalano. She's Micmac on her mother's side, so First Nations, but Indigenous. And she went from being, in her own words, an overweight night nurse that smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day to being the best United States woman distance runner in about 6 years. She was, much to her chagrin, she was second in the Boston Marathon 3 times in a row, but won like 6 Honolulu marathons, was the first American woman to break 2.5 hours in the marathon. She's on the wings board now. I feel like for a lot of years, her story wasn't told the way it should be. And it still isn't told the way it should be, right? We're not, Native runners and Native people are not quite aware of, like I said, Billy Mills is just the tip of the iceberg. And I love Billy to death, and I'm very fortunate to have spent personal time with him, right? But I think he would agree with me as well that, there's a whole other, I can just keep going, right? Keep going. And before, even before Ellison Tarzan Brown won those Boston Marathons, you had runners like Tom Longboat, who was Onondaga, right? Won the race as well in 1912, I think, before it was the standardized 26.2 distance. Sorry, I'm blanking on names. There's so many that in this Rolodex, right? Tom Longboat. Aside from Tom Longboat, you have a Penobscot runner. What is his name? I'm embarrassed because this is my job to really know all these.
We haven't mentioned Jim Thorpe either. We haven't mentioned.
Of course, right? And Jim Thorpe. And you look at that. And
look at what that was all about. I mean, that was horrendous what they did to him. I mean, they stole the man's shoes and socks like the day before his big decathlon, right?
Yeah, he had to borrow a pair of shoes.
Yeah, if you look at the famous picture of him where he won it, he's wearing two different shoes. Like one is out of a trash can, and one was out. They found a shoe somewhere. They're two different shoes, two different socks, and just so that he can go and run and win. I mean, he won, and then they took it away from him because politics. And then
politics. People were upset that
he won.
Yeah, exactly. They were
like, how dare this Indian win?
Yeah, even his own countrymen, right?
Yeah.
Like, say, okay, well, you were a professional athlete, and it
was a semi-professional athlete.
Yeah, bogus, right? But a contemporary of Jim Thorpe, I'm like deeply immersed in the distance running history, right? It's that same Olympics, the 1912 Stockholm Olympics, where Jim Thorpe won the gold medal in the decathlon and the heptathlon. Louis Tuanima, a Hopi runner, from Second Mesa, who was shipped to Carlisle Indian School in 1906, right? So Louis Tuanima participated in both the 1908 in London and the 1912 Olympics, right? But in 1906, Louis Tuanima was identified as a hostile by the U.S. government because he wouldn't send his own kids to boarding school. So they took him and about 25 of his village members. They put him on a train, sent him first to Fort Defiance near close to Gallup, and then sent him all the way to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania. And Pop Warner, who was both Jim Thorpe and the coach, he's not responsible for Louis Tuanima or Jim Thorpe's talent, right? That's their culture, that's their upbringing. So you can't tell me that someone who was essentially a prisoner of war in 1906 that is suddenly representing the United States in London, that they're doing that out of pride for their nation. No, yes, their nation, right? Their indigenous nation, their tribal nation. Yes. But I take so much inspiration from that, right? That they had the mental and spiritual fortitude, even though everyone was rooting on them to lose, and even their own coaches were basically constantly talking about what idiots they were. They still managed to perform, and they're still there to inspire our youth, to inspire this generation, right? So, and it's so deeply layered because Louis Tuanima, there are stories about him going home to Hopi and being beat by men almost twice his age after the Olympics, right? Like that he was not the best runner of that time, that there were possibly better that could have been representing. And that when he came home, people were like, this classic crabs in the bucket thing, telling him, you think you're bad now because you have fancy shoes and a uniform, right? Like, we'll run you into the ground, brother. And probably they did and could still, right? But you can't take away those accomplishments of so many of these runners, and there are more to list. But like I said, we could go all night, and the pandemic has been a really difficult time for Wings and our programs because we haven't been able to do in-person programs, but it has provided an opportunity to really deep dive into this history and reflect on just how important it is that we kind of create an encyclopedia of Native running for Native people. It might be a lifetime project type thing, but it needs to happen.
Oh, for sure. So who's the future? So what's happening now in Wings, and what are you seeing happening with the youth that you're working with?
Yeah.
What opportunities?
Got some Olympic hopefuls in there.
Yeah.
There are Olympic hopefuls, and
Nice.
these are mostly young people that are post-college at this point, right? Because there is this weird, but everything's going to change with the pandemic and the way that people think about their opportunity, right? Like, I don't know in 5-10 years if NCAA cross country and track is going to be a sport that universities feel excited about investing in, right? But running's not going anywhere. And so, you know, we have to be able to define ourselves on our own terms and with our own performances, and not, you know, it's really nice when you can take a team of high school age kids to USATF cross country championships and put them in a race with D1 college freshmen and watch them kick those kids' butt and do great. And the coaches afterwards, and this is how I got recruited, right? I ran these races as a Wings national team member, first in Van Cortlandt Park in New York City, and then my senior year in Boulder. And that punched my ticket, right? I was given the benefit of the doubt when otherwise I wouldn't probably have been given it unless I got to race next to those people. So, you know, Wings is still focused on that, but also cognizant of the fact that those same platforms for distinction may not be there in a couple of years. And over the last even 5 years, we've really seen the level of competition at these competitions that we take these teams to, just right. Like, it's not what it used to be. So we got to rethink that. And, you know, we're thinking a lot about how do we support these post-collegiate runners that are trying to be pro or semi-pro, right? How do you give them an opportunity to really do that for a couple of years? Because it takes years. You don't become an Olympic distance runner overnight, and it takes maturity, right? I'm 31, but I also still feel like I'm just still finding my stride as a potential competitor. But potential competitors are doing amazing things out there. You know, Jackson Thomas, who ran at Bacone College, Bacone University in Oklahoma under Clay Mays. Clay Mays is a former Wings national teammate of mine from that New York City trip. But, you know, he really started to show what could be possible when you invested in Native athletes and Native talent and brought them in, and those that bought into the program and bought into the lifestyle started running amazingly. And, you know, people like Santiago Hardy, young Navajo man from Chinle, just ran last weekend an hour and 6 half marathon in Las Vegas, PR'd by like 4 minutes. A couple weeks before that, broke 15 in the 5,000. And he's got teammates from all over that are nipping at his heels. You know, the Chase brothers from MHA, 3 affiliated tribes up in North Dakota. There's runners all over the place. And I'm really actually, you know, big shout out to Indian Sports Online for helping keep tabs on these runners, right? And I learn about Native runners or runners with Native ancestry all the time by just what they're reporting. And that's great. Runners and athletes and in events that are not necessarily just straight up cross country race or distance race. But, you know, like I said, moving forward, I think the future is going to be creating community for these runners to come together, find strength in each other, and just stick their head down and stay the course. And Wings is putting things into motion so that we'll be able to do that in earnest. I don't want to say too much yet, but, you know, part of this, what I will talk about is I have this inspiration from these 2 gentlemen that have run this race up in Alaska. It actually starts in Alaska but ends in Canada. It's called the Spirit of 98 Klondike Road Relay. It's like a little over 100-kilometer race that starts at Skagway and goes up and over White's Pass to the Yukon. And this route is, I think, particularly significant and attractive to me because it's the route of a gold rush, right? The 98 gold rush, the 1898 gold rush. And if we can go to this race with an all-Native team and set a course record, in some way I feel like we're kind of reclaiming this very colonial-inspired event and helping people realize, like, better recognize,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's powerful.
10 to do this, and we're really shooting for 2022,
Nice.
and hopefully before then we have a house full of Olympic hopefuls that are pushing to make that dream come true. And like I said, there's still a lot of pieces to put in place to get there, but it needs to happen. And with support of people like Patty Dillon that is on our board, and Billy Mills, who is an emeritus board member, with a little bit of success, I think we can start pushing it there. And what's most exciting to me is that, like, if we make that happen and we create that level of inspiration, just where the next level of talent is going to start just bubbling up from all over Indian country. And, we owe it to ourselves to really cultivate that talent, because the next Billy Mills is out there, and we gotta make sure they get that shot. He, she, they, right? It's gotta happen, because in 2064 we can't be talking about the 1964.
I ain't gonna be talking about shit in 2064.
Yeah. No offense to Billy Mills, but we can, our community and our tradition as competitors can only rest on his laurels for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and we need the opportunity to get there. You shared with me some videos, some pictures, various things. Is there anything in particular that you'd like me to bring up? I was looking at your video. I know it's a 12-minute video. I mean, I'm happy. I don't want to spend all our time looking at that, but
I can kind of give some more context to that, and maybe you just post the link, right?
Yeah.
But
this is, sure.
I've been here yammering about competition and how we need to kind of hold up space in the competitive realm to, and that as animatedly as I can talk about those things, I also have huge hesitations about just talking about running as a way to be competitive and a way to define yourself, right? I think people's competitive nature and the nature of competition is a very Western dominant culture thing, and I think it's dangerous. I think it breeds the toxic masculinity that hopefully we've seen the peak of in our society, and you have to be careful, right? You have to temper that attitude, and fortunately my running journey has put me in contact with people and voices that have helped me understand a lot more about why running is a vehicle for prayer. And a huge part of that was participating in these runs to advocate for. The first prayer run that I really took part in was a run started by a young man named Riley Ortega, who lived down in Phoenix, but he's Navajo and Hopi. And he decided that, and I don't mean this to take anything away from him at all. Like I only say this actually to give more to him, is like, I had these notions of like, what if we were to run to Standing Rock from Albuquerque, right? And what kind of message would that send back in 2016? And this young man just did it, with the help of his family. He made it happen, and he started this run from Flagstaff. And once I saw that it was happening, I was like, I have to be a part of this. I have to contribute in some way. So, we met those runners in the middle of the night, or in the middle of the early morning. I was actually, oddly enough, at that time, it was with Alvina Begay that I ran the first leg as part of that relay in the desert near Moab. And by the end of the day, we were linked up with another bus full of runners from Rosebud and Pine Ridge. And before I knew it, we were just, the potential to bring Indigenous people together through this activity of running, and running for a cause, running with intention, is unbelievable. And so, fast forward a little bit more to it is December of 2017, the Trump administration announces that they're going to eviscerate Bears Ears and minimize the monument. And There was a quick run that was organized directly after that December, the Three Sisters prayer run that went from Flag to Bears Ears. And it was actually two separate groups, a Navajo group and a Hopi group. And as they were running, kind of came together that December. And from that bred this idea of this run that we did in March of 2018, where we went from these 5 starting points that you can see on this map, a total distance when you combine all the routes of about 785 miles, all to come together in Bears Ears and run for prayer in the future protection of these areas that are, you know, they're sacred to all of us. And the tribes that were participating, whether Hopi, Zuni, Navajo, Ute, Ute Mountain Ute, Uinta Ure Ute, Pueblo people, right? We had a start route in Santa Ana, Pueblo. We have not always gotten along, and we still don't get along sometimes, but we could come together for this. And the level of healing and inspiration that came from a run like this, as well as the level of doubt that you had to push through, right? Like before I knew it, I was kind of a crucial organizer in this effort. And there I was, bleary-eyed in the middle of the night, tracing routes on Google Earth across areas that a lot of people just look out their window and say, "Thank God I'm in a climate-controlled car," right? But we covered those miles. This is Santiago Hardy, one of those runners that I was mentioning as an Olympic hopeful, right? He's running in his Wings national team jersey, which makes me proud, right? But he can also come out and run in prayer and do that with intention. And, you know, I think a lot of this is, like I said, it comes down to us being aware of the great extent of our ancestral homelands, right? Being aware that we have to, it's not just a place or an area that can be bounded, right? Our ancestors moved through these landscapes and used them for many different reasons. And for us to awaken ourselves to that reality is important. And it's also important because our ancestors are listening, their spirits are listening. And if we touch the earth with our footsteps, they can hear us, maybe in a way that they can't if we're just making our offerings from our modern day home, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, like I said, I can get super animated about talking about the future of competitive running, but I almost, you know, I could be as excited about talking about the future of prayer running for Native youth, to bring, you know, intertribal prayer runs where you bring people in with an intention and a common cause. And I'm not saying that it's tricky stuff, right? People disagree about the correct way to do it. If you're doing it in ceremony, can you film it, right? Like this film that was made, like there was a lot of tension coming out of that, as, you know, well, Dustin invited these cameras in here, or, you know, because it was my friends, my connections that made that documentary possible. You know, people saying, well, you were just doing it to be in front of the camera, or you kind of tarnished what we were trying to accomplish. And I deal with this still, right? Yeah. You know, let me see if I can share my screen, but let's see. Okay, application window, here we go. Can everybody see? Can you see that?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, can we? All right, there it is.
Okay, so this is the route of a prayer run that I did with a couple of friends recently, from the volcanoes, which are on the West Mesa of Albuquerque, to the foothills, you know, crossing the river. And you can see the route there going through. And the idea was that we were tracing the waterways, right? And praying for the water. But what kind of spurred our thought and the feeling that we needed to do this, unfortunately, the images of a relative being tased by a national park law enforcement officer on December 27th in that national monument, right? So this gentleman Mr. House was there visiting in prayer, and we as Indigenous people, as Native Americans, the law says that we have the right to visit sacred places in ways that other people don't. And that law enforcement officer did not read that this gentleman was invoking that right. And things just escalated really quickly. And unfortunately, this poor man and his dog were tased, and his sister that was there with him, I can't imagine the level of fear, right? But it hit really close to home for me, because not only do I live in Albuquerque, but we have taken program participants to this national monument in the last year and a half on field trips. The National Park Rangers were happy to be our docent for this, right? But only if we visited and on their terms, kind of, right? Like only if we followed the trail, and they were really happy to acknowledge our youth's connection to the land, and any interpretation that they had to offer, they gave the kind of caveat of, well, but your culture has something different to say, and we respect that type thing, right? But truth of the matter is, no, you don't, if your law enforcement officer isn't trained in a way to respect that.
Yeah.
And so this run that we did, it started at the volcanoes. It went following the watershed off those volcanoes that runs into Rinconada Canyon. And we went off trail. We went in an area where we weren't supposed to be. And had there been a law enforcement officer there watching us, we probably would have been stopped. But the way I see it, we were invoking our religious freedoms, which is protected, right? The Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1976. And then subsequently, I can't quote the legislation.
RFRA, yeah.
Right. These rights are protected as tribal citizens, right? Mm-hmm. And so unless we invoke them, unless we do things like this because I don't know the last time that waterways are paths, right? Waterways are the most logical highways for us. As the animals follow them, birds follow them, people follow them. We should still follow them. And so the idea was we were going to connect the waters across the valley that haven't been connected in a way in a long time. And if you look at that map, part of it, let me bring it up again. You see, like, we didn't cross on the bridge. And that was like, even that in itself was like paradigm shifting to think like, well, we don't have to run to a bridge. We can cross these waters on our feet. And as we kept going up the foothills, we ended up following, man-made waterways, right? We were running along the channels, but that water in those channels is still alive, right? So it still deserves our prayer and needs our prayer. And, at the deeper we went into this, why we were doing this run and why we were praying on that day, I started doing more research about Tigwe Pueblo, about the people that were in this area when the first colonizers came through in 1451. This is the Coronado expedition before the Oñate expedition, right? And there were, as their histories say, right? I have not, I won't share any of those histories that were shared with me by Tigwa or Tigwa descendants, but from the Spanish histories, it's a history, an account by this guy named Castañeda. But it talks about the way that they, in the winter of 1451, sent scouts out this way, decided, well, Albuquerque, or what is today Albuquerque, is a better place for us to winter than anyone else. They sent everyone from Zuni, all of their crew this way, and basically at gunpoint said, you have to provide us with all the food and blankets that you can so that we survive the winter. Right? These are the Tiwa people of this valley, of the Rio Grande Valley, pueblos like Tigwe and names like Arenal that still exist in Albuquerque, right? Those names are still on the landscape and on places, but people don't know that those are rooted in the people that were here, right? And so they ended up besieging these pueblos because they wouldn't surrender. They at a certain point, some of them did surrender, and the terms of that surrender were not honored. And so they said, no, we won't surrender to you. And so they were locked down in their pueblo for literally months. It says from, about December of 1451, it's December of 1451 to March of 1452, until eventually, they tried, the people that lived in these places tried to flee at night and ran across the river. And the next morning they sent scouts out to check on those people, and they were frozen. So, it was really, really heart-wrenching to be doing this run. And like I said, to feel this like empowerment, like we don't need a bridge, right? But as you're in that icy water, thinking about those women and children that, froze to death in that same water, right? And people don't remember that the roots of our cities well, they do, right? But to really, really get into that it's painful, and it takes a lot of thought and strength to be able to stomach and to come out of feeling hopeful still, right? But through all of this, so I guess I was saying I still catch flack for you're not doing this the right way. I have a friend who saw we posted a little bit about it after we did the run. It was about 25 miles, and one of our runners had tracked it on his Strava, and someone had to chime in and say, well, you weren't doing it in ceremony. If you used, why would you need a device like that? Why would you need to track it if it was a prayer run? And I get where he's coming from. I understand his argument. I in some ways appreciate it, right? I don't usually run with a watch. I make a point of not doing it, right? I can't stand those young runners that like are glued to the next beep of the mile and look at, well, what's my pace, right? You got to be careful, right? But at the same time, I wasn't about to tell the people, my comrades that morning, that well, you're about to, you've agreed and you trust me enough to say you scouted this route, where we're going. I'm about to run the longest I've ever run in my life, and I want to track it, right? So I'm not going to tell you that you can't. And there's a lot. There's a lot to still be learned, and I don't imagine that there could ever be like an agreed upon protocol about how to run spiritually or ceremonially in the right way. But we got to keep having these conversations, and we got to keep exposing our youth to opportunities to run in this way along with the competition, so that they keep their head on straight, right? So that by the time they're 24 or 25, they're not so hardwired to just think, if I don't get in this many miles at this pace today, then I'm a failure, right? Some days you just got to go out there and run for those who can't, and that's enough.
Well, you've really made me think a bit different about how I spend my time in movement and its purpose. And I'm really grateful to have been a part of this conversation. What I was thinking when you were talking about the National Park Service and that business, we should make you all and other people who go and visit sacred sites, we should make some type of little card that has the laws, that has a statement, that has something to show. And it would be really great to have like tribes who are affiliated with those national parks to have that specific to those parks, so people feel safe and that they're not going to get pepper sprayed or what have you by national park law enforcement. I think that's horrendous, and I'm grateful that your youth didn't run up against any of those problems, because that could really
but I mean, psychologically they already have, right? So for me to, like I said, be a chaperone trip where we take them to those places, and I think that's great. A lot of them had never we're aware that the ancestors are right above them, you know.
Yeah.
But how can they in good confidence go back to those places feeling safe when that's what they see on the news?
Mm-hmm.
And so our hope with the run is that, you know, in the process of praying for the water and for healing, right, is that water will bring cleansing and healing for that landscape, and hopefully for the young people that are wanting to use it and feel safe there. And you know, as we did the run, we came down through the section where there was not a trail, where technically we were not supposed to be. And I just thought it was so fitting and beautiful that there was a young man that we didn't know, but he was definitely native, you know, a high school or young college age runner, just getting his workout in on that trail. And, you know, for him to see us kind of like barrel down the hill, and he was kind of wondering like, what's going on, but he just, you know, in some way it was symbolic to me that like, okay, things can still be all right, you know. And we have a young native man out here getting his run in and getting his training in. Then, you know, it's people are out here praying still, and the spirit is alive.
Yes. Yeah. So Roy,
Are you at a loss for words?
No.
This is a different show than we usually have. I think we've had one other athlete on the show, and he was a fighter.
Our Choctaw boxer. Is that who you're talking about? Our Choctaw boxer?
He was an MMA fighter, not a boxer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah, so this is different for us. We usually have lawyers and artists, and sometimes association members and whatnot. So it's been different, but it's been interesting. And I've long, you know, in my family, we talk a lot about Jim Thorpe and what running means to us as a spiritual outlet. Just like, you know, some people use prayer and meditation, a lot of people use running. And for me, in my youth, I was in the Marine Corps and I ran, you know, I did some pretty good running in my day. I've slowly stopped my running career. Not that it was a career, but I've slowly stopped running because of my knees and my age. But I know there's a lot of runners out there that are older than me that are still doing it. But back when in my youth, I used to get, and I guess they call it the runner's high. But I used to get that spiritual feeling when I'd get out there and really pour it on and do long distance running when I was in the Marine Corps when I was younger. So I understand that what, you know, I can hear it in you, how deep it is and what meaning it has for you and the people that you bring to it. So I'm glad that there's that outlet out there for the youth. Another thing for them to do, you know, versus the other stuff that's out there. So appreciate you and what you do for the communities, and good luck to you in the future here and bringing us some more Olympic hopefuls.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And, you know, along with that, it's really that I think the pandemic has shown us this, right? I'm speaking to Indigenous youth right now. You got to stay active. You got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
We've lost already too many knowledge bearers, simply because whether it was bad food or bad life decisions, you know, I'm not trying to put any blame on anyone or anything, but we just have to be realistic about this, right? And we got to take care of ourselves, because before we know it, we'll be the knowledge bearers, you know. Yeah. And
health is important. And
yeah, if that means just stretching on a daily basis, right, to let yourself know what's not feeling well, what's not feeling right, you got to be aware of who you are and the body that you occupy. And it will have positive effects on all the rest of your life. You know?
When you're in your 50s, everything makes you aware of what hurts and what's not doing right.
Yeah. So
I bet Dustin's going to feel a lot different when he's 50 than we do, Roy.
Oh yeah,
I
I'm
bet
sure.
Dustin's lived a good life, and
Well,
he's been
I
physically.
didn't do too bad. I took care of myself for most of these years, and I'm still doing it. I have put on the COVID-20. I got to admit, I have, and but it's coming off. It's coming off slowly.
See, Roy's short now. He's telling me he's over 200 pounds. I'm really worried about you, Roy. You better.
I've always been up in that weight range. 180. My fighting weight is about 180.
I've never seen you fighting to be at fighting weight, whatever that means.
When I'm in my best shape, when I'm in shape, about 180 is my weight, and so I've been there most of my life, and now I'm over 200 pounds, and that's 20 pounds over, which, and not to say anything about, in most circles, I'm doing pretty good at my age, to be honest with you, even at 200 pounds.
Yes. And me coming from Oklahoma, I look at people I went to high school with. I'm doing a lot better than they are.
But in Indian country, the biggest problem is the diabetes rate and the obesity rate, and it has a lot to do with processed foods and the diets that we have. So it's one thing. I think the most important thing about physical fitness, and especially in Indian country, is what we're putting in our faces, and that's all done in the kitchen versus out on the field and working out and doing those things. I mean, that's part of it. Yes, it is. Being active and moving is part of it. But what we are putting in our bodies is most important. I mean, I know that when I'm in my best shape, it's because I'm doing the right things by eating the right way and putting the right things in my body, and treating that as sacred, my diet as sacred. So it doesn't matter what kind of activity you do, as long as you're doing activity. But the diet is numero uno. So my tip to you out there in Indian country, with some places having 90% diabetes rates, some tribal areas, which is, I mean, it's astounding. Watch the diets. Kick that damn fried bread. That's like every once in a while. No more fried bread.
Well, the way I like to put it, in the way that I kind of put it in perspective for myself, is as runners, to be a runner, to be a messenger in our societies pre-contact, right, was a space of honor. I have been fortunate to be close to Oren Lyons over the years, and he talks about himself as a runner. When clan mothers came to him and said, "You have to be a runner. You have to be a messenger," and that involved for him, representing indigenous peoples on the world stage at the UN, The Hague, in those respects. But part of that was being an athlete and having that mentality, that always ready mentality. And, think about those messenger runners that were integral to our communities pre-contact, right? They always had to be at the ready. So, when we eat 20 chicken McNuggets or whatever it may be, right? And we know that in 4 hours, we're not, it'll come up tasting wrong, right? Like, you got to have that mentality of like, well, what if someone came to me with a message that I had to run 45 miles? I have to be ready. I got to be ready to be able to do that. And you look at the history of the Pueblo Revolt, right, in 1680, and the runners that made that possible. That people underline so much the amazing planning and foresight of the leader Popé, right, and being able to transmit those messages and knotted ropes, right. But when it came down to it, unfortunately, the Spanish figured out what was going on, and they had to have a whole new set of runners get that message out and say, bump things forward, things are happening now, right. But those runners were there, and those messages went all the way from the Rio Grande Valley to Hopi. So when you think about those capabilities and what is possible, not just what was possible, what is possible, it kind of, I think, makes us understand that duty and the sort of spirit of a messenger that you have to have. And put forward, hopefully on a daily basis. I'm not saying it's easy. I have my stumbles and shortfalls as well. and love to eat, chocolate covered donuts, but you run them off.
Well, you've got these great videos. Perhaps we could use these videos that you all have created for Wings. Should I play one of these?
Yeah,
or at least part of one?
You can click on any one of those. They're all available for free, and they're not quite as refined as I'd like them to be yet. But all these are fitness tutorials. Lance mentioned,
nice.
warm up the body first before stretching, get the blood to the muscles, and that's totally right on point, right? And these are the basic messages that we're teaching Wings. Dynamic warm-ups, right? Here's one of our runners, NASA N Warrior.
Let's see if I can.
And just showing, right? First reason is to get your heart and blood pumping, right? Make sure that oxygen is at all the extremities of your body so that every part of your body knows that it's ready to exercise.
Hello everyone, my name is Manasseh Enwer. You can call me NASA. I've been working at Wings for about 3 years. I go to school at UNM. I just got my degree in film and animation. I am Navajo and Oneida, and I'm helping you with some stretches.
Awesome.
These marching knees. And what you're gonna do?
All right, here you go, Roy.
Up, opposite leg, opposite hand, up, and
high knees
in one spot. Just marching, and just make sure that opposite hand, opposite leg.
Hey, is that my knee? No, that's my high knee.
Try to have your knee come up to your chest. Not to your chest, but as high as you can. And you just march.
That's awesome.
And these are called high marches.
So some of the other exercises and pieces of this series are like I said, these are the videos that we went out in July. If you scroll up a little higher, and you'll see some of our former facilitators and national team members being the demonstrators for these exercises. And the idea was, right, we're creating tools so that those youth that we're now impacting virtually, that we're getting on Zoom sessions or calling them on the phone, just checking in and reminding them to stay active, that they have something to look at, right? They have something to follow along with as well. Because you can encourage all you want, but sometimes it's nice to have someone that looks and sounds like you to follow along with. So here's a core hip strengthening routine we call Myrtle, and none of this stuff is rocket science. It's things that are available out there, but to put it all in one place is hopefully what Wings will be able to achieve eventually. And like I said, do it in a way that is appealing to Native youth because
it's ours.
It's ours, yeah, and it looks and it feels like us, and we're not having to look at some pro runner who likely lives in our ancestral homeland. You look at Flagstaff, and you look at Albuquerque, and you look at even Mammoth Lake, California, right? Like these are all native lands, and the places that people covet as places to train are home. So once again, we gotta be representing there, and people should recognize that.
Yeah, beautiful. This has been a really great show, Dustin. I'm really grateful to have had this conversation with you. You're just you've got so much heart and commitment and purpose, and I'm grateful that you're out there working with our kids. I want to make sure that we hear from you. If you need the Association on American Indian Affairs, you need to use Red Hoop Talk, not like we're the thing or anything, we're not, but if we can ever be helpful and supportive of the work that you're doing, let us know. Would love to have your youth on. Maybe we need to have a bunch of your kids on to talk about what they're doing. It would be great to have a talking circle with everybody.
Yeah. And Gray gently just asked just so that we can address this, because I think it's important. Any other recommendations or movies or books? There's a recent book that came out. It's called Hopi Runners or Hopi Running by a professor, Matthew Sakiesta Gilbert, who's now at the University of Arizona. But that's a good one written by an indigenous scholar. There's another one that a lot of people go after, or that they've seen. It's called Indian Running, which actually profiles the tricentennial commemoration run of the Pueblo Revolt run in 1980, written by an anthropologist who's now at UCLA, Peter Nabokov, and he's not a character without controversy recently, as for other things that he's published that kind of, I feel, overstepped the bounds of what's appropriate. But there is some good information and great pictures in that Indian Running book. Let's see. What else am I thinking about? Other books to look at or to see. If you go up and check out that Sacred Strides documentary, it's
yeah, for sure.
I'm proud to have been a part of it, and I think it's even if it created some heartache for me insofar as self-doubt about did I do it for all the right reasons, because some people felt like those cameras shouldn't have been there. We told a story, and it's important that we were there. And,
concerned protocolers is all I call them.
It's hard.
You always get concerned protocolers.
Yeah. Let's see. There's that professor Matthew Sakiesto Gilbert. Let me put his name in the chat because some people have a hard time with Hopi names, understandably. But so that way people can look up his name. Let's see comments. How do I?
Do you have it? I think I have it actually. Let me just
Yeah, you're not.
the book was a winner of
Oh yeah, you can post them there.
I've got it here. There we go.
There you go.
Winner
Yeah.
a prize too.
Yeah, so I think he's, definitely, I'm super proud to have met Matthew, and I think he's going he's really kind of shifted my mentality of that story I was telling about Louis Tawanama, and kind of being used as an implement of American nationalism when he should not have been, right, was just super eye-opening to me. And I love the way that he analyzes that. And like I said, helped me realize just how amazingly strong those runners were to represent a country that didn't love them, and to set an example for people they never met, right? So,
right.
As we go forward, and definitely check out that, the New Mexico Tough Guy list. There's some, to learn more about Steve Gachupin and Al Wauke. There's also some other links. Maybe you can throw those in there, Shannon, about Al Wauke's runs up the Empire State Building, and just cool pictures, right? To see pictures of an indigenous person on the podium on the top of the Empire State Building, it's powerful.
Yeah. So we'll include this on the YouTube video on our YouTube channel. We're going to include all the links and videos we've been talking about tonight.
Yeah. Thanks, Dustin, for everything. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you guys as well. Appreciate the engaging conversation, and as well, just profiling these voices, because we have these tools at our disposal now, and whether they're traditional or not, we'd be fools not to use them, right?
It's communication. It's
For sure.
dissemination of information. That's what our elder taught us. Get it out there, get it in front of the people, and talk about it. So that's what we do here. All right, Dustin. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we will definitely follow up with you and maybe get some of your youth on and have us a talking circle with them and pick their brains.
All right. Take care, everybody out there.
All right, Dustin. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. All right, sis.
I am completely inspired. And
what are you going to do? You're going to go run tomorrow? Is that what you're telling me? You going to run?
I think I might have to. I've got a great trail. I've got a great trail out back in the woods. Yeah, and it's snowing, so it's nice to run in the snow.
You can have that. You can have the snow. I don't even like the rain. It's raining out here right now. I don't like the rain. But I have hills, so it's so hard to run out here.
I've got hills. Don't tell me about hills. I've been running in hills for.
It's hard on your knees, especially when you're fat. It's like,
well, you need to get you. Why are you running in heels? You need to run in sneakers.
All right, Shannon. That's it. All right, everybody. thank you so much for showing up with us this weekend. We appreciate you all. Thank you, chat room. And thank you to the Association on American Indian Affairs.
Thank you, the Association on American Indian Affairs from on high, or wherever you are, for being our producer of the show. If you like what you see here, you want to help us do better, please be sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Like and comment, good or bad.
That's right. Don't care if it's bad. Tell us. We want to hear. We want to hear from you. If you have a guest idea or an idea for a show that maybe we haven't done, because we don't always have just a special guest. Oh, hey, Vance, it's good to see you in the chat room on Facebook. Be sure you better have subscribed to us, Vance. I'm calling you out in front of the whole world here. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Okay. So if you have any comments, guest ideas, please send us an email. It's on our website. It's general@indian-affairs.org. That is our email that you can reach out to us and let us know what you're thinking. Really appreciate your time, everybody. Roy, I really appreciate you being here with us. I know your life is busy.
Extremely. Extremely. But I always love being here. It feels so good being here. Love talking to people. I love talking to people. It's awesome.
And I'm going to go eat a piece of chocolate pie, and then I'm going to get up early and go.
And I'm going to steal more tamale. Because I think it's settled a little bit. I can get one more in. All right, everybody. We'll catch you all next week on Red Hoop Talk. Have a good one.